couple of comments while we're waiting for the illustrious FRiar Milunski, and here he shows up. So just want to wish you all a good morning. Hope you had an enjoyable morning so far. Had something to eat. Hope you rested well last night. Just a couple of comments before we ask FRiar Brady to come back to the podium. I was reminded by my able assistant that the people outside here, the vendors who are here supporting our conference, will be leaving this afternoon. When we break for the free afternoon, they will not be back. So I encourage you again to stop by this morning, especially if you're in a coffee break. I wouldn't do it while Brad's talking. And see them today before they leave. And whether you purchase from them, just thank them for being here and supporting our congregation. They are here for us. A couple people mentioned about our orange ribbons here, and I heard a couple people make a comment about that I am willing to service, which I am. But you know, there are a few of us around, of course, as you know. A few years ago, we had a meeting with our diocesan leadership, all people from the parish leadership, and we had a panel discussion about vocations. And Bishop Cunningham asked if I would represent the deacon community on that panel. And somebody asked the question, you know, well, who are the deacons and all that stuff? Well, you know, I can sum it up very quickly, very easily. The deacons are servants, first and foremost. And I said further, if the deacon is not a servant, then he's really not a deacon. So, okay, that's the end of my homily.
Well said.
Josh Corcoran mentioned, Deacon Bob Fangio, who led our prayer this morning again. We thank Bob for his wonderful voice. He did a great job again. And he mentioned Josh Corcoran, the music minister who was with us. I do want to give a special thanks to Josh also because, in addition to leading us in our prayer this morning, he also put together that whole program for us. So, very talented guy. So, we thank Josh. And then something else that you're going to get tired of hearing me say, bring your programs with you today, all day. If you want them during your free time, that's okay, but bring them to the cathedral for sure. We will need them at the cathedral today, so don't forget to bring them along. You can just leave on a bus. Put your name on it if you want somebody to take it. Leave it on the seat of your bus, but you should take that with you for sure to Mass and Vespers today. And then watch again for the bus numbers. It'll be either 1 or 2. I'm complicated, so if you don't want to lose anybody along the way. I don't want to leave somebody in the ladies' room at the facility. Just put that in. Just be careful. All right. And thank you, and welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Are you with me still?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Hope everybody had a restful night and I'm enjoying being spoiled a little bit here at the hotel, folks. It's what's it called now? The Marriott downtown. So great. Yesterday we talked a little bit about the theory of call narratives, and so the theory, but also the practice in our own lives. And I heard many of you comment afterward too that it was great that it moved into that because, as I don't know who said this, but there's nothing so practical as a good theory, right? And so when we look at the whole format of the call narratives, I hope that maybe you get a chance in a little bit of your quiet time, or even as we were reflecting last night, they'd have a chance to look at that movement in your own life. The movement of how God calls and continues to call. Today, we're going to look at, shift gears a little bit in the second part. We're going to work toward a break at 10 o'clock. But we'll be looking at the call in Isaiah and the call in Jeremiah and some particularities of their call and what that might say to us. And I'm also going to give you some time to share with each other. Don't worry, you're not going to break up into small groups. This is one way to kill a FRiar's meeting. We're going to break up into small groups. So you don't even have to move from your spot. So you'll be okay. So our first call narrative that we're going to look at today, the vocation of Isaiah the prophet. You realize that that's a long book, and I'm not going to review all that, but it's probably a multiple number of Isaiahs because it just spans an incredible amount of time, and it's Isaiah and Isaiah's school who were gathered together later into this one book that we call the prophecy of Isaiah. But we hear about Isaiah's call. In fact, we recite it as often as we go to Mass. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God of hosts. We hear that in Isaiah 6. So let me just read that chapter to you. I have to take my glasses off to read. I never understood my parents when they took off their glasses. I said, why don't you just get new ones? And I was a teenager, of course. They said, you'll see. So from chapter 6 of Isaiah. In the year King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord seated on a high and lofty throne, with the train of his garment filling the temple. Seraphim were stationed above, each of them had 6 wings. With 2 they veiled their faces, with 2 they veiled their feet, and with 2 they covered aloft. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts, they cried one to the other. All the earth is filled with his glory. At the sound of that cry, the frame of the door shook, and the house was filled with smoke. Then I said, woe is me, I am doomed. For I am a man of unclean lips, living among a people of unclean lips. Yet my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, holding an ember which he had taken with tongs from the altar. He touched my mouth with it. See, he said, now that this has touched your lips, your wickedness is removed, your sin purged. Then I heard the voice of the Lord saying, whom shall I send? Who will go for us? Here I am, I said, send me. A powerful moment in the life of Isaiah as he's called by the Lord. Again, one of the aspects of Isaiah that stands out for us is that he's obviously a member of the priestly establishment in Israel. Don't we hear that kind of terminology sometimes, usually disparagingly, in our conversations in our world? He's part of the establishment, right? He's part of the institution. And yet Isaiah is part of the establishment, and he's doing his daily duty. Right? You remember from the Gospel of Luke, where Zechariah, that's his call to be the father of John the Baptist in the Gospel of Luke, right? And then we're told that he was taking his normal turn, right? It was like the preaching or the mass schedule, right, for the deacons, right? What's the schedule for the month of August? Isaiah was on his monthly schedule to do what he was supposed to do in the temple. And it's in the context of that normal, everyday duty that he hears the call and he's confronted by the Lord. So we're going to just walk a little bit through this narrative, this story of Isaiah's vocation with the categories that we heard yesterday. And the first is the divine confrontation. And what Isaiah understands is he has an experience of the utter transcendence of God. Right? He's overwhelmed in the temple by, we would say, smells and bells today, right? He's overwhelmed by the smoke filling the temple. And he's aware that there is some kind of heavenly vision happening here that is quite outside the course of his ordinary life. And his naming of that experience is of the utter otherness of God, the transcendence of God, the holiness of God. We're not talking so much in this case about a moral category of, he's a holy person, she's a holy person, and I'm not. But we're talking about holiness when it needs to be really set apart, to experience the Lord, to experience God as totally other, as someone who is certainly distinct from me, and yet invites me in. So what's the introductory word? We hear not at first an invitation. Okay, they didn't. One of our professors used to say that when he would teach us Hebrew, he would say to us, "How come this form is the way it is?" And nobody, if it was a funny thing, we couldn't come up with the answer. He'd say, "Because Hebrew mothers didn't have this grammar book when they spoke to their kids." So they didn't follow the order, the call narratives. But the elements are there. And what is the introductory word? The words are not really addressed to Isaiah, but they're an exclamation of the seraphim, right? The seraphim, the word, of course, comes from the Hebrew word that means to burn. The seraphim are the burning ones, the burning angels, high in the order of things, because they are so close to the holiness of God, in the presence of God. And so they cry out, as we do every time at Mass, "Holy, holy, holy is the Lord God of hosts. All the earth is filled with his glory." And this is Isaiah's experience, this proclamation from the burning ones, the seraphim, of the utter holiness of God. The commission, of course, is that the Holy One, Isaiah knows that he's not there by accident, that the seraphim came and, oh wow, I just stumbled upon this, right? Isaiah is aware that something is coming. And so what's his response? Even before he's asked to do something, what does he say? Woe is me. Having this experience of the utter transcendence and holiness of God makes him realize his littleness and his uncleanness. Again, it's not as much a moral category of sinful, not sinful. He's thinking in priestly categories, that he is someone who, because of his actions perhaps, or his ritual disobeying of the laws, even the smallest ones, perhaps he's experiencing himself as being not totally set apart for God in his words and deeds, which may or may not involve sin, but it's not being totally available to God. And so Isaiah, before he's even asked to do anything, he voices his objection. "I am unclean." In other words, I'm not even worthy to see this vision of the seraphim. I'm not worthy to have this take place right before my eyes. And his objection, woe is me. So what's the action here? It's a little bit of a painful one, really, because the seraphim, they come to Isaiah and they take an incense from the altar, and Isaiah says that the seraphim touched his lips, right? The burning ones touch his lips, and they say, "Your wickedness is removed, your sin purged, your uncleanness taken away." It's almost as if, it's God again, right? Working in the presence of the seraphim, or working as messengers of God. And it's, the whole thing with Moses yesterday. Who am I? Well, it doesn't matter because I've chosen you. I can't speak. Well, I'll get Aaron to do it for you. It's basically God's way of saying, shut up. Right? You're not going to win here. You're not going to win if you want to be in my service. And so the seraphim come and they literally burn his lips so that his sin and his wickedness, his uncleanness is purged. And now he has no excuse but to turn himself over to what God is going to ask. Notice that the mission and the call has not even been spoken yet. The sign, right, is also the purging of Isaiah, but then the sign is that now that I have touched your lips, now that I have burned away your wickedness. It's almost as if, well, it's funny how the story tells it, right? Because it's not even the Lord addressing Isaiah directly. Isaiah says, I overheard God say, who will I send? Who's going to go for us to this house of Israel? And so Isaiah now, in his new state of being purged, says, I'll go. And then the rest of the chapter is the delineation of the mission. So the sign is at once that Isaiah's lips, his uncleanness, everything has been purged. He's been put back to this state of right relationship with God. And the sign is going to be, these are one of the difficult passages for a prophet to hear, because now God gives him his mission, and listen to what he says. Now that Isaiah has overheard God asking who's going to go, and he says, I'm going to go for you, God says, go and say to this people, listen carefully, but you shall not understand. Look intently, but you shall know nothing. You are to make the heart of this people sluggish, to dull their ears and close their eyes. Else their eyes will see, their ears hear, their heart understand, and they will turn and be healed. That's like you as the deacon getting the message from your pastor, you're going to go and set up a group in the parish that's going to fail. Good luck. Right? This is basically what God is telling Isaiah already, that you are going to go to this people and they're not going to listen to you because they're not going to like what they hear. But this is your mission, right? And it's the rightness of the mission that determines the prophetic vocation. The rightness of the mission. It's not whether the prophet wants to do it or not. It's the rightness of the mission. And so Isaiah is sent out to proclaim this message to the Israelites, to call them back to fidelity. Incidentally, as an aside, how many have been to Rome? Did you ever visit the church in the Jewish ghetto in Rome? There's a church there that is, when you go into the church, people may not notice it right away because the ghetto was established in the Middle Ages to have, the church was there to bring Jews in to preach to them so that they would be converted. Right? So in that church, in Hebrew, to kind of rub it in, is this passage from Isaiah. You're going to listen and not hear. You're going to see but not want to see. Right? And so a little historical aside that as the church was, now the church in one sense, we can't even say this really too loudly, but it did it out of the best of intentions, and obviously that was the mentality of the Middle Ages. But this passage from Isaiah is the one that's in the church in Rome, and in Hebrew, right? To drive the point home that this is your invitation to conversion from the Pope. But this passage is really, in historical context, is Isaiah's call to his own people to get their political and religious motivations back in line with what God wants from them. So, what does Isaiah have to ask us? How have you, in your life, experienced the utter transcendence, the holiness, the utter otherness of God in your life? Have you had one of those moments? It may not have been something that lasted very long. It may not be something that is written down anywhere, but somewhere in our lives, and often over and over again, we have experiences of the utter otherness and utter transcendence of God. We know that this encounter, maybe it came through a person, through nature, maybe you were in church, maybe you weren't, maybe you were in personal prayer in the morning or at night. Doesn't matter. There's an experience that we have in our spiritual lives where we know that God is other. And I don't mean that in a negative sense, but we know somehow that God has come to us and is with us. And it's not me doing talking. It's not me doing the moving here. It's God's initiative. So the first question that Isaiah in his call asks us, how do we experience the utter transcendence, the holiness of God? And second, how does an awareness of your own sinfulness and brokenness empower or hinder your ministry? You could say your family life, your ministry together, your husband and wife. How does the experience of your sinfulness or brokenness empower you or hinder you in your ministry to which you've been called? And third, how have you experienced the presence of God in moments when it both burns and heals? How have you experienced the presence of God in moments when it burns and it heals at the same time? What I'm going to do is shift gears a little bit this morning is to just have you choose one of your neighbors. It doesn't have to be your spouse if your spouse is here, but just turn to one of the people next to you or behind you or in front of you. And just for about 5 minutes or so, reflect together and share to the extent that you're comfortable on the questions that you put up before you. Okay? Go do it.
Yeah, like my wife and Bill always have, I'll do it at my own, but I want to be able to give it, actually have it fixed. Oh, great, thanks.
And sometimes they don't have to do things the same way, and so they just kind of look at you in the language because Yes. Yes, that's right. Like, yes, sometimes like in that, they have that song that started my rock. They go and
So you got a tripod somewhere.
Yeah,
You had it?
I had it at home. I didn't bring it yesterday.
Oh, that's what you
did.
wanted.
So I brought it in this morning. So we're good.
That's good.
Yeah, so we'll have plenty. I asked Father Brad to announce the red too because I've had people ask. These will be available. I'll need a couple of days to have them put them up. But then we'll get them
no,
up
he
online.
already gave me permission to do this.
Okay,
So,
great. So, okay.
I have the proof of that somewhere in my email.
Excellent. Thank you.
Also, that and that was good. That's the thing. Son of a life. This happened. Lots of the film inside, but it was still good. And then there's some and so that I think and mine that's the vacation it's kind of vacation part. And so it's all yeah, inside. I think it's inside. And so, but he's still alive. It's rare. Right? He's still alive. So that's the main thing. Right? And around, which is awesome. And so, yeah, so that was kind of the first blow. So as this happened, you think, wow, this happened. It's not great. And now, that's the other side of it. Why are you taking that is.
Okay, if we can call ourselves back and hope that you
So
are enriched a little bit by hearing a little bit about the faith journey of your neighbors, your sisters and brothers. And you certainly can continue the conversations. I promise I'm not going to make anybody, I'm not going to pick calling anybody, make you share something. So great, thank you. We're going to shift gears now a little bit to the prophet Jeremiah. That's a statue. I don't know, I might have been to Rome, but it's the statue outside in the Spanish Steps. There are 4 prophets. It's a big monument to Mary. Every December 8th, on the Feast of the Immaculate Conception, the Pope goes to this monument and they hang a wreath. Actually, the firemen do it because the Pope can't reach that monument. So they hang a wreath there in honor of Mary. And there are 4 prophets around, and David as well, who are reminders of prophecies about Mary. And this is Jeremiah over there. But anybody know, we don't, as Catholics, traditionally do chapters and verses, but one of the ones you ought to remember, of course, is Isaiah 7:14, right? The virgin shall be with child, shall conceive and bear a son. You'll impress your Protestant friends. But our prophet Jeremiah, the call in Jeremiah comes right in the chapter 1. We're given a little bit of a historical situation of where Jeremiah is. He's one of the major prophets, of course, but he's right on the edge of exile. Remember that we're told that Jeremiah goes with the exiles into exile. And this whole prophecy, this whole time of preaching and bringing the word of God is very terrible and heart-wrenching time in the history of the people of Israel, because it's almost as if this is going to be inevitable. Let's listen to the words of Jeremiah. The words of Jeremiah, son of Hilkiah, of a priestly family in Anatoth, in the land of Benjamin. The word of the Lord first came to him in the days of Josiah, son of Amon, king of Judah, in the 13th year of his reign, and continued through the reign of Jehoiakim, son of Josiah, king of Judah, and until the downfall and exile of Jerusalem, in the 5th month of the 11th year of Zedekiah, son of Josiah, king of Judah. The word of the Lord came to me thus: before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I dedicated you. A prophet to the nations I appointed you. Ah, Lord God, I said, I know not how to speak. I am too young. But the Lord answered me, say not, I am too young. To whomever I send you, you shall go. Whatever I command you, you shall speak. Have no fear before them, because I am with you to deliver you, says the Lord. Then the Lord extended his hand and touched my mouth, saying, see, I place my words in your mouth. This day I set you over nations and over kingdoms, to root up and to tear down, to destroy and to demolish, to build and to plant. Jeremiah, again, is a member of the priestly class, so a member of the establishment, a member of what is indications of stability. And as we all know, in this time leading up to exile, the priests and the kings, they are people who are viewed by the prophets as having gone downhill and going downhill fast. But it's to a priest that Jeremiah is part of this establishment that, again, the divine confrontation comes. This is not true of other prophets like Amos or Micah. Those of you who might turn around and say, well, I love the table names, So Amos, remember, he tells when he's criticized by the king's prophet. The kings also had a group of prophets they paid to tell them the news they wanted to hear, right? And it's usually the prophet who's called by the Lord who comes in and says, your prophet is telling you the wrong thing, lying. And Amos says, don't give me any problems. I tended sycamore trees. I was a farmer, right? And the Lord called me to prophesy to Israel. I didn't even live here in Jerusalem, but the Lord called me up. But Jeremiah, again, like I say, is part of the establishment. He's part of actually the centerpiece of a group of people. He's also critiquing because of the gradual disillusionment of the people with the sacrificial system and how it's being used for personal gain, etc., etc., etc. So Jeremiah is called, he's confronted by the Lord, but listen, and except for, I have to say, except for the more attractive and beautiful passages here in 1, where we hear about him from before his birth, and Jeremiah 31 and 32, where he starts to talk about a new heart, a new covenant. Everything else in between is sort of bad news. Jeremiah is not the one you'd invite to your convocation. Because he's usually the bearer of bad news, right? Even when people think he's coming with good news, he doesn't have many good things to say. And so this is the burden of Jeremiah's ministry that he carries. When we look at how Jeremiah is called, there's again the divine confrontation, but listen how beautiful the divine confrontation is. It's before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. No prophet up to this point has been given that kind of affirmation by God. That there is, not from Isaiah, not even from Elijah, none of those prophets hear that, Amos, Micah, but here Jeremiah hears something from the Lord that I knew you way before you were born. And I already had this mission in mind for you. And Jeremiah is going to need that as he continues his mission. The introductory word again is those beautiful verses where he talks about how he has known Jeremiah from the womb. The commission is to go to the people of Israel and he will tell them that he's going to have a double mission, right? To demolish and to build up, to build and to plant, to destroy and to raise up again. And so Jeremiah is going to be intimately involved in sharing with the people of the covenant how God, even through this experience of exile, is going to allow them, in a sense, to be demolished, all their idols to be demolished. The idols, literally and figuratively, the ways that they have put other things in place of who the living God is. And this is going to be Jeremiah's double mission. His objection this time is, I'm too young, right? I'm inexperienced. I'm not mature enough. I don't know enough. Which is a strange objection when you think about it, when God says, I knew you from the womb. He could have come up with something better, Jeremiah. Doesn't make sense. And so how does God respond? Don't say, I'm too young. End of story. To whomever I send you, you will go. And the reassurance is, of course, that Jeremiah is going to, in faith, have to accept this constant accompaniment of God. And this accompaniment of God with him has been with him before he was even born. And so there's no reason that God is going to take that away now, especially when he has the assurance of that he knew him from before he was born. And the sign, of course, is that there are a few signs that come after. They don't really make sense in English too well. You hear after God says to Jeremiah to root up and to tear down, to destroy and to demolish, to build and to plant. The word of the Lord came to me with the question, what do you see, Jeremiah? I see a branch of the watching tree. And I replied, then the Lord said to me, well, have you seen, for I am watching to fulfill my word. They try to do it in English, doesn't make sense, but they're kind of plays on words in Hebrew. So God is giving Jeremiah a whole host of signs here to assure him of what his mission is going to be. And in fact, what is concretely happening in the history of Israel, which is not going down a great path. One of the unique aspects of Jeremiah, which they're pretty powerful, are the so-called confessions of Jeremiah. And the term confession, they're inner dialogues, monologues, prayers to God, wondering out loud of how Jeremiah is really burdened by this mission that he's been given. I mentioned before that he is the bearer of bad news most of the time. And guess what? It really gets to him. In fact, in 5 chapters it gets to him, right? As the book is later compiled. But these reflections of Jeremiah are actually prayers that were invited to overhear as the prophet feels the burden of his mission to be a prophet. I wanted to single out one of them. It's probably one of the better known ones, and it's the one in chapter 20 here. I'm going to read those verses to you. Jeremiah says at one point, "You duped me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped." Some translate it as seduced. There's even a different connotation in that I was taken in by you. Those great words you told me before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. And here I am with this mission. You duped me, O Lord, and I let myself be duped. You were too strong for me, and you triumphed. All the day I am an object of laughter. Everyone mocks me. Whenever I speak, I must cry out. Violence and outrage is my message. The word of the Lord has brought me derision and reproach all the day. I say to myself, I will not mention him. I will speak in his name no more. But then it becomes like fire burning in my heart, imprisoned in my bones. I grow weary holding it in. I cannot endure it. And he continues to go on after a few verses in 14 there. Cursed be the day on which I was born. May the day my mother gave me birth never be blessed. Cursed be the man who brought the news to my father, saying, a child, a son has been born to you, filling him with great joy. Let that man be like the cities which the Lord relentlessly overthrew. Let him hear war cries in the morning, battle alarms at noonday, because he did not dispatch me in the womb. Then my mother would have been my grave, her womb confining me forever. Why did I come forth from the womb to see sorrow and shame and pain, to end my days in shame? Not a day to make an appointment with Jeremiah. The powerful words there that the Lord took him in, right? I was taken, right? I was taken for a ride. But Jeremiah admits in his own interior prayer that we're invited to be here, that when I try not to do this, I can't resist it. I know deep down in my bones that this is the message I'm called to proclaim. I know it and I can't. It's worse for me to hold it in. It tires me out to hold it in. I have to speak because it's like fire in my bones. And so it's a great consolation, I think, for us that we have these confessions of Jeremiah where the prophet powerfully talks about the fact that messages that we bring as prophets could be any time in our church today about social teaching, about justice, about peace. It could even be the invitation for people to speak civilly to one another. Not a welcome message, even on the most basic level. Prophet Jeremiah assures us that our ministry at times is going to be burdensome. It's going to wear us out. We're going to take the day and sit in the corner and complain to God. But of course, the prophet also says, is the fire going to keep burning in you so that you can't do anything else? You can't do anything else. One of my favorite writers on Jeremiah is Kathleen O'Connor. Some of my students, I remember me quoting her. She wrote some wonderful books. She's a lay woman, married woman, who is a great Catholic scholar. I can't remember where she taught. May have been at Marquette. I'm not sure if she's still there or not. But Kathleen O'Connor, and she wrote a wonderful short book, actually, on Jeremiah called Jeremiah, Pain and Promise. And in that book, at one point she writes, Jeremiah's prayers or confessions that we've been talking about make him an iconic character as much as do stories of his captivities, all of the ways that he was imprisoned by the king from time to time to shut him up. People can identify with him because he suffers from the same festering wounds that afflict them. His profound misgivings about God portray a kindred soul who mirrors their suspicion, skepticism, and outrage. And because the confessions take the traditional form of a lament, they have the capacity to bring the people together in communal worship and gather them again as a praying people. It's a wonderful movement or heritage that we have from our Jewish brothers and sisters, because they have this whole category of lament and these confessions. In other words, it is quite fine for us to complain about God. It is quite fine for us to mirror and lay bare before God our skepticism, our outrage, our suspicions, our questionings. I think of this every time when there's that wonderful psalm from Friday night prayer, Psalm 88. You know, it starts out, you know, that about everything going wrong, and it ends with, "You've taken away my friends, made me hateful in their sight, in prison I cannot escape. My one companion is darkness." Glory be to the Father. I was giving, some of my students, I think, may have heard this story too, that I was giving a workshop on the Psalms to some of our poor Clare sisters. And I wanted to hear what they had to say about that, because I said, what about Psalm 88? He said, there's no happy ending. There's no happy ending. Even some of the other Psalms of lament have the verses added where God reverses the situation, God brings the consolation, and the people are gathering in prayer and praise because God has turned over a bad situation. There's no turning over the situation. They told me, well, yes, but the person, the psalmist, never stops talking to God. Never breaks off communication. It's a whole prayer addressed to God. It never stops talking to God. And perhaps that's the key. That's what our Jeremiah tells us. That's what our Jewish brothers and sisters in the whole category of lament talk about. Because they did this, of course, not always as individuals alone, but they came together as a people to express their doubts, their fears, their tears, their suspicions at what God was doing in their lives. But they never broke off communication with God. They never broke off speaking to and with God. And that's the heritage that Jeremiah brings to us. That's what basically Kathleen O'Connor is saying in her quote, that because Jeremiah is a larger-than-life person in our tradition, he gives us permission to be the same with God. He gives us permission to help deal with the prophetic aspect of our mission as ministers and as baptized Catholic Christians in our church and our world today. So a couple of questions that we're going to end with in the same format. I'll ask you to share with another person around you or 2 or 3 people. Jeremiah asks, pay attention to your own interior conversations with God. If you were to voice your own confessions or have in the past, what would you say? And second, have you ever experienced your ministry as burdensome? And what keeps the fire burning within you? So leave those questions up. We're just about 5 of 10, so we'll take about 5 minutes and you won't miss coffee. Believe me, I'm right with you. Coffee is one of my favorite things, so I will let you know when it's time for the break. It'll be about 5 minutes. Take some time and just kind of ruminate and wrestle with those questions and feel free to share what you can do comfortably with each other. Not easy stuff. Aren't you get going? Go first. Whoever's thinking they should go first. Go first. Yeah.